Night was falling. The 7 exhausted prisoners stopped to rest for a while. But Janusz said stopping was not a good idea. He told everyone that the night was going to be freezing cold, and if they wanted to survive, they needed to gather firewood from the nearby trees to make a fire. But the criminal among them said they should go to a nearby village instead. There, they could find shelter. As they discussed this, all the prisoners began remembering their past lives and how they had ended up here. Let's turn to the beginning of their story. The movie opens in the 1940s. Stalin's regime is at its peak. In Russia and the territories under its control, people are declared traitors for the smallest mistakes. At that time, Janusz, a soldier from Poland, is falsely accused of espionage and arrested. He's brought in for interrogation, where an officer keeps trying to force him to confess that he's a spy. Janusz remains calm, knowing he's innocent. Then suddenly, his wife is brought into the room. She looks exhausted, terrified, and broken, clearly tortured during questioning. Her condition shows that she's been pressured into giving a false statement. When the officer asks her, "Do you know this man?" she quietly says, "Yes, he's my husband." Then the officer turns to Janusz and asks, "Is this your wife?" Janusz replies, "Yes, she is." The officer then asks the woman again, "What else do you know about him?" Terrified and helpless, Janusz's wife is forced to testify falsely, saying that her husband spies for foreign countries. Janusz understands everything. He knows this isn't his wife's doing, but a lie created by the regime. He is then sentenced to 20 years of hard labor. Janusz is sent to a Siberian prison camp, a place so isolated that no one had ever escaped. Even if someone managed to flee, they would die trying to cross thousands of kilometers of frozen wilderness. The new prisoners are lined up as they arrive. Janusz stands among them. The camp warden steps forward and tells them that this prison is one of the harshest places in Siberia. Not just a prison, but an entire region that serves as one. There's nothing for hundreds of miles, and nature shows no mercy. If you escape, the warden warns, the local people will hunt you down. Every prisoner here has a bounty on their head. They'll kill you for money. After the warning, everyone is sent to their barracks. That night, Janusz stands in the food line for his first meal, soup and bread. A man named Mr. Smith dips his bread into the soup, but a piece falls to the ground. A starving prisoner rushes to grab it, but Mr. Smith quickly presses his boot on it, wipes it off, and eats it. Janusz feels pity for the hungry man and offers him his own bowl of soup. Mr. Smith looks at him and says, "You want to die showing mercy? How long will you live on half?" Janusz replies, "He's old and he's hungry." Mr. Smith answers coldly, "I'm old too, but I'll still be alive in the morning." He won't. Saying that, Mr. Smith walks away. Soon, another prisoner, who used to be an actor, approaches Janusz. He asks, "How many years did you get?" Janusz replies, 20 years. The actor nods and says, "Same here." The two men continue walking together, talking quietly as the cold night deepens. The actor slowly begins to tell Janusz about life in the camp, how dangerous it is, how the guards watch every move, and how escaping through the snow, forests, and deserts is nearly impossible. Janusz asks curiously, "Has anyone ever escaped from here?" The actor replies seriously, "It's almost impossible. Most of the people who try never make it. They die on the way. And if you ever think about escaping, forget it, or you'll end up dead too." The camp holds many prisoners from different countries, some political, some real criminals. The actor tells Janusz about them, but without naming names. He explains that many of the inmates are ruthless Russian criminals who survive only through cunning and violence. Listening to him, Janusz realizes that trusting anyone here could be fatal. A few days pass. One day, the actor meets Janusz again and quietly leads him down a path. He says, "I've been waiting a long time for someone like you. Someone with courage, someone who might actually make it out of here." Janusz asks, "But where can we even go if we escape?" The actor finally confides in him. He has planned several escape attempts before, but he needed someone trustworthy. Now, seeing Janusz's strength and determination, he believes he's found that person. Under the actor's guidance, Janusz joins him in planning the escape. The actor explains the route. "We'll head south, cross the border, and reach Mongolia. But we'll have to wait until the winter ends. It's too cold now. Even if we make it out, we'll freeze to death before we get far. We need to stock up on food first. The journey will be long thousands of kilometers." So the two begin quietly gathering supplies for the escape. At this camp, all prisoners are assigned to cut wood in the forest. They go out each day, chop logs, and then return to the camp. One day, while the prisoners are working in the snow, a violent snowstorm suddenly hits. The wind is so fierce that it's hard to breathe. Some prisoners collapse and die right there in the blizzard. The camp commander tries to take control of the situation. He orders everyone to sit down on the ground and wait for the storm to pass. But Mr. Smith who has survived such conditions before, realizes that staying in the open will be suicide. "We have to move into the forest," he shouts. "If we stay here, we'll all freeze to death." The commander refuses pauses to listen, afraid the prisoners might escape if they move into the woods. Mr. Smith ignores him and starts walking toward the forest alone. Furious, a guard raises his rifle and orders him to stop. Mr. Smith pauses for a moment, then keeps walking. The commander warns him again, threatening to shoot. But Mr. Smith continues forward, his eyes calm and full of confidence. He knows that the forest is their only real chance to survive. After a tense moment, the commander lowers his gun. He realizes Smith is right. Sitting in the open means certain death. He finally orders everyone to move toward the forest. The prisoners rush into the woods. Despite the snow and wind, the trees give them shelter, and for the first time in days, they feel a small sense of relief and safety. The next morning, everyone stands in line as the commander walks slowly past them. He stops in front of Mr. Smith and glaring says, "Feeling too cold, are you? Step forward." Then he calls out a few more prisoners, Janusz among them. Mr. Smith immediately realizes what's happening. He mutters under his breath, "Would have been better if they'd killed us yesterday. They're sending us to the mines, and working there is like working next to death itself." The air in the mines is so toxic that every breath feels like poison. When Janusz begins working in the mine, both his body and mind start to break down. The exhaustion and the suffocating fumes make him dizzy. Soon, he starts hallucinating, seeing visions of his home. He imagines walking toward his house, reaching for the key hidden under a stone near the door, and trying to unlock it. But in reality, a guard stands over him, rifle aimed directly at his head. Just then, Mr. Smith rushes in and pulls Janusz back to safety. "Are you insane?" Smith yells. "That guard could have killed you." Janusz, gasping for breath, says, "I can't stay here anymore. I'm getting out." He then excitedly tells Smith that the actor has an escape plan, a real chance to get out of the camp. Mr. Smith, his tone heavy with experience, replies, "The actor has no courage. He makes plans but never acts on them. I've seen it before. But if you're serious about escaping, I'll go with you. Because if I fall, you'll help me up and you won't leave me behind." Janusz is moved by his words. He realizes that Smith isn't just experienced. He's a true companion, someone who cares not only about his own survival, but about the others too. Now, even Smith trusts Janusz completely. One by one, others join them. Soon, 7 prisoners are ready to escape. Janusz, Mr. Smith, the actor, an artist, a man who can't see at night, and 2 others, including a hardened criminal. One night, a violent storm begins. Janusz looks out at the howling winds and realizes this is their moment. He quietly goes to the actor and says, "This storm is our chance. The guards won't see a thing. Their watch will be weaker. We can get out." But the actor hesitates, full of fear. He makes excuses, saying it's too dangerous. Janusz keeps urging him, "If not now, then never." But the actor refuses to move. Nearby, a notorious prisoner, part of a criminal gang, overhears them. Later, he approaches Janusz, holding a knife, and threatens him. "If you don't take me with you," he says, "I'll kill you. But if you let me join, I'll help you with this knife and with my experience." Janusz reluctantly agrees to include him in the plan. That night, Janusz, Mr. Smith, Valka, the criminal, the actor, and 4 others, 7 in total, make their escape. They cut off power to the camp's generator, plunging everything into darkness. Using the blackout as cover, they slip past the fences and into the storm. The guards quickly realize what's happening. They unleash the dogs and chase after them, but the wind is roaring so fiercely that they can barely see. The 7 men run blindly through the snow, the freezing wind slicing their faces. The howling of the dogs grows closer behind them, but all they can do is keep running, terrified, desperate, and half-frozen, into the endless white wilderness. After walking for some distance, several prisoners began to say they couldn't go any farther. Their feet were numb from the cold, breathing had become difficult, and their body heat was fading fast. But Janusz, calm and determined, refused to stop. He said firmly, "The dogs are still behind us. If we stop now, none of us will live till morning." The storm was so fierce that they could hardly see. Snow stung their eyes, and the wind burned their faces like fire. Janusz quickly asked Valka for his knife. Valka, still a bit distrustful, silently handed it over. Janusz cut small branches and strips of bark from nearby trees, fashioning makeshift face masks, a kind of shield to protect their eyes and faces from the freezing wind and sharp snow. All through the night, the 7 men kept trudging through the blizzard. By dawn, they had gone deep into the Siberian wilderness. They hadn't traveled far from the camp, but the snow was now so thick and deep that it seemed impossible for the guards or their dogs to reach them. Exhausted and shivering, they finally stopped. Janusz told everyone to sit down and rest. They opened their packs. They had only enough food for a few weeks, but they knew their journey would take months, and the path ahead was completely unknown. Mr. Smith, always the rational one, looked at Janusz with anger. He said in a quiet but firm voice, "You made a big mistake trusting that criminal Valka. He's dangerous. He killed a man back in the camp." Janusz replied, replied. "He has a knife. We need it. That's why he's with us." Using the faint sunlight and the shadow it cast, Janusz determined their direction. They decided to keep heading south toward the Mongolian border. But Mongolia was still unimaginably far away. Night began to fall again. The 7 weary prisoners stopped in one place, but Janusz insisted, "We can't stop yet. The night is going to be freezing. If we want to live, we need to collect wood and build a fire." The criminal disagreed. "We should go to the nearby village," he said. "We could find shelter there." Janusz immediately refused. "No, if we go there, we'll be caught." No one supported the criminal's idea. So Janusz said, "Night's coming fast. Everyone go gather wood so we can stay warm." They all went in different directions to collect firewood. Among them was Kajik, the quietest and weakest member of the group, a man who couldn't see well at night. He too went out to collect wood, but on his way back, he lost his sense of direction. The snow, the darkness, and the bitter cold disoriented him. When the others returned and piled up the wood, they noticed one man missing. At first, no one understood what had happened. Then someone said softly, "Kajik can't see at night." Panic set in. They all spread out, calling his name again and again. But the only reply was the howl of the wind and the crunching of snow under their boots. That night passed in anxious silence. When the first pale rays of sunlight touched the snow in the morning, they finally found Kajik, sitting a short distance away, his body covered in frost, completely frozen. They gently buried him in the snow nearby. Then, heavy-hearted but determined, they gathered their packs and continued walking. Days passed. Gradually, they left behind the vast white plains, the endless, deadly snowfields of Siberia. Gradually, they entered a forested area. By now, their food supply was almost gone. According to their plan, they should have reached a large lake long ago, but in reality, they were still far from it. One morning, as the sun cast a faint light over the snow, they heard the sound of animals in the distance. Following the noise, they discovered a pack of wolves tearing apart their prey. Driven by hunger and desperation to survive, the prisoners rushed forward and fought off the wolves, eating the raw meat like wild beasts. There was no other choice left. Afterward, Janusz realized that everyone was too weak to continue. He decided to go on alone to find a safe path forward, promising that if he didn't return in a week, they should assume he was dead. Despite exhaustion, hunger, and the freezing cold, Janusz kept walking. On the way, he began hallucinating visions of his home, the old stone under which he had once hidden a key. But he forced himself to stay focused and eventually found his way back to his companions. When he returned, he told them the lake was only about 3 days away, and if they stayed alive, they could reach it. His friends fed him what little food they had left and kept him warm by the fire. By morning, Janusz had regained a bit of strength, and they set off again. As they moved toward the lake, they began to feel that someone was following them. When they turned to investigate, they saw that it wasn't a man or a soldier, but a woman. She said she was also escaping from Russia and begged to join them. The group refused. Their food was already scarce, and taking another person along would only slow them down and divide their rations even further. Later, when they reached the lakeside, they saw an animal trapped in the swamp. Desperate to survive, they killed it and used its meat for food. During the meal, one of them remembered the woman who was still out there, starving. He went back, found her, and brought her to camp by nightfall. The woman joined their group, and for the first time in weeks, everyone ate peacefully. There was a sense of relief and comfort on their faces. They stayed there for a full day, bathing, eating, and drinking water before setting off again. At first, the woman lied about her past, but over time, she began to tell them the truth and slowly became part of their group. After many hardships and an endless journey, the group finally reached the Mongolian border. But before crossing, one of the Russian prisoners, Valka, the cruel man who had been with them from the start, decided to stay behind. He refused to go any further. The group was now down to 6 people. When they reached the border, they saw a gate with Stalin's portrait on it. That's when they realized that even here, communism ruled, the same regime they had fled from in Russia. The sight crushed their hopes, but they kept moving. Their new goal to reach China, then Tibet, and finally India. Along the way, they faced scorching deserts, blinding sunlight, and unbearable thirst. Their bodies were weak and broken. The girl often fainted because they had almost no water left. Every step felt heavier than the last. Every breath was a struggle between burning heat and suffocating dust. At one point, while trudging through the endless desert, Mr. Smith pointed ahead and said he could see trees. Perhaps there was water. But the others disagreed. According to their map, that direction wasn't the right one. Even so, Janusz and the others decided to take the woman with them. When they reached the place she had mentioned, they actually found a well. It felt like a miracle, like life had been given back to them. They drank deeply, washed their faces, and felt a sense of relief for the first time in days. After resting for a while, some of them suggested staying there for a few days to regain strength. But Janusz disagreed. He knew that stopping would only make their hunger and weakness worse, and the longer they stayed, the harder it would be to continue. Their next goal was India, but the path ahead was anything but easy. They had to cross a vast desert filled with scorching winds and violent sandstorms. During this part of the journey, the young woman collapsed again. Her body was weak and swollen, and every step caused her pain. Still, she kept walking. She didn't want her weakness to slow the group down. But eventually, her body gave out, and she died there in the desert. The group buried her along the path. Now only 5 men remained. After many grueling days, they were still trapped in the endless sand. Their bodies were broken and dehydrated. A few kilometers later, the artist among them collapsed and died as well. Only 4 were left now with no food or water and still a long way to go. Eventually, they reached the edge of the desert where mountains began to rise. The worst seemed to be over, but then Mr. Smith, weakened beyond measure, collapsed. He told the others to go on without him. Janusz refused. He told the rest to continue ahead and look for water while he stayed behind with Mr. Smith. That night, the two of them moved slowly through the cold, rocky terrain and finally stopped to rest. In the morning, a snake crawled near them. Janusz killed it, cooked it, and shared it with Mr. Smith. That evening, as they sat by the faint warmth of the fire, Janusz asked Mr. Smith about his son. Janusz knew that Smith's son had been executed in Russia by a man named David. Mr. Smith explained, "I brought my son to Russia. That was my mistake. He was captured by the Soviets and under pressure was forced to testify against me. Because of that, he was executed." Then Smith added quietly, "Just like they forced your wife to testify against you, they made my son do the same." Janusz nodded sadly. "My wife is still alive," he said. "She testified against me too, but she had no choice. I have to see her again." The next morning, after finding some water and food, the 4 remaining men continued their journey, stronger now and filled with renewed hope. After walking hundreds of kilometers on foot, Janusz and his companions finally reached the Great Wall of China. But they couldn't stay in China because a war was raging between China and Japan, so they pushed onward toward Tibet. Once again, they faced mountains covered in snow. But when they reached Tibet, the local villagers welcomed them warmly. They offered food, shelter, and rest. The villagers told them there was a path through Sikkim that led into India. However, they warned that the winter was too severe. If they left now, the blizzards could kill them. They advised the men to stay until the weather changed. "We will take care of you," they said. But Janusz refused. "If we stop now, we'll lose our courage," he insisted. "We have to keep going." That night, as they rested, Mr. Smith told the group that he would instead go to China, where he could reach the American embassy and find his way home. By morning, when everyone woke up, Janusz and the remaining 2 companions were gone. They had quietly set off before sunrise. Through freezing mountains, hunger, and exhaustion, the 3 men kept moving, and finally, they crossed into India. In India, they were welcomed with open arms. They had walked more than 400 kilometers, about 4,000 miles, on foot. One of the longest and hardest journeys ever recorded in human history. But the story didn't end there. Janusz's journey wasn't over. His homeland, Poland, was still under communist rule, so he couldn't return yet. It wasn't until 1989, when Poland finally became free from communism, that Janusz returned home. In the final scene, he lifts the same stone under which he had once hidden his house key. He unlocks the door, and inside stands his elderly wife. They look at each other for a moment, and then embrace, crying together. After decades of suffering and separation, Janusz had finally come home. And with that, the true story of the way back comes to an end.